past is past. There's only now. And so as it comes up and you look at these thoughts, it tempts you, taunts you to resent it, to struggle with it. Remember what I said, it wants you to struggle.
Yeah,
Can we stop it there? Can we just, this is like too good to not just talk about. He says, remember what I said, it wants you to struggle. You should probably get a chair and sit there. We should do this. This is that good. It wants you to struggle. And truly, this is the trick. This is the trick of life. It's the snare. It wants you to struggle. You know why? It can get you into your head where its domain is. That's its playground. Your head and your thoughts and your guilt and your private universe that only you know about, that only we as individuals know what's in there. If it can pull us up into our heads out of the be still and know, then it can have its way with us. And the past is past. And it's a very interesting way of saying it because, we make mistakes all the time, every day. I look at my life with my children and now my grandchildren and daughter-in-law, son-in-law. And today I posted something, and I was talking about my daughter-in-law because today is Mother's Day. And I wanted to say something nice about her because we didn't start out so easy. It was a tough go. There was a lot of wills working. Her will, my son's will, my will, a lot of wills fighting. And they got married, and there was, and my dad was involved, and it was a pretty tough thing because we felt like they rushed into it. But in retrospect, I look back and I go, did I handle myself properly? And I didn't. And so I have guilt from that. And so up inside of my head even, no matter who you are, no matter where you are on your journey, no matter even if you feel that God has saved you and you feel like, well, I shouldn't have these guilts. Well, guess what? I won't as long as I stay in that be still and know. But when the devil can pull me up into my head and he can get me out of my center, out of my calm, then he can have his way with me. Anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah, when I was married for a brief time, I didn't handle some situations right, and I noticed I saw it, and then when I apologized to her for it, it just relieved me, and I don't have any of the repetitive thoughts about it anymore.
Well, the apology is an interesting thing because it is also a key. Last week's talk was called The Key. And the apology is also another one of those little skeleton keys that unlocks you from the guilt and from the intellectual hogwash. It's just over and over and over. You're overthinking things, and an apology is an amazing thing, a spoken out loud apology, because you can be sorry and you can walk around feeling like, well, I didn't do the right thing. But until you verbalize it to the person that you did something to, it's just stuck inside your head and you're kind of playing games with yourself. So there's a lot of keys to unlocking ourselves in our heads.
Resentment is he's talking about, and that's that going over ruminating again and again about how you want things or how you see things, and that resentment keeps coming back. And he's talking about, right away, he talks about resentment.
Agreed. And let's play from there.
It talks to you in a certain way. You're neither to argue with it, to reason with it, to believe it, or disbelieve it.
Watch it like a bad movie.
Just watch it without any sentiment whatsoever, without any engagement, because it wants to engage you. It wants you to believe it. It will accuse you of being stupid or all kinds of, it will curse at you.
Yeah.
So for being stupid, But I've got you now. It could actually be crazy like that. You'll be talking to yourself after a while. You know, all you have to do is just watch it as a scene from a movie, but you can get out of it. You can get out of the movie theater. See, you can't get out of your movie theater. The movie theater is your brain, and you're lost down there.
Yeah.
Emotionally entangled down there. But grace has come into you to show you you are not guilty.
Think about that. Grace has come into you. Has anybody ever even thought like that? I mean, when I hear my dad talking like that, I don't think, of the entity, Father in heaven or Jesus, as grace coming into me. He had such a beautiful way of articulating his points. Grace has come into you. And he says, don't react to it. Don't engage with it. Recognize that when you see this, what is the opposite of grace but evil? When you see this evil coming into you in the form of thought.
The opposite of grace is will.
Ah, very good. Right. That's right. There you go. And will, used in the wrong way, is evil. It's the force of evil versus grace being the force of love, or not the force, but just love. But it's interesting when you see this intellect coming upon you, this whirlwind of thought and reason, and you're a stupid idiot, and you shouldn't have done this, and you shouldn't have done that. I see people all the time. They're just so hard on themselves. They're beaten down, and their parents may be gone, long gone, for decades, but now they're punishing themselves. We are our own punishers. I'll give you an example. This morning I got up early. I've been getting up very early, which I think is great. Early to bed, early to rise. And I wake up in just the beautiful morning, and I took a shower. I did the normal things, got a cup of coffee, and just kind of walked around, looked outside, and feeling good, going to come do the Sunday talk with you guys. And I walked out of the bathroom and I left the light on, and you know who said to me, my dad. This is exactly what he used to say when it was like, you're forgetting something. And I go, that was you. I know that was you, Dad. And you're right. So I turned around, I made a U-turn, went back in and turned off that light. And I said, thank you. That's the spirit, the good spirit of Dad. But there's the opposite also, that we punish ourselves. We can tap into the good spirit, which is the consciousness of the good, the spirit of good. Or you can tap into the spirit of what your parents have done to you, the trauma. This would be PTSD, right? Or just post-traumatic stress that we carry on ourselves all the time. And out of the blue, your parents' voice, mother or father, or the person that has been evil to you, will tell you you're a stupid idiot, or will say something that is a punishment type of thing. And it's almost like you're saying it to yourself. You're conjuring it up because, well, you're not in the right place, of course. You're not in the be still and know. There is that zone. We don't know what to call it. Somebody help me put a name on it. But that be still and know place is a beautiful place because it's just the calm. It is the calm. But then all of a sudden, somehow you fall from that grace and you fall into the pit of despair, we'll call it, where all of those traumatic little thoughts are that are just the roulette wheel that is, the ball's going around and around, and there's thousands of them going around and around. One drops. Well, you're a stupid idiot. Don't you remember when you did this when you were a little boy or a little girl, or you got away with it, you never got caught? I know you did it, or whatever. This thing talks to you. He says, neither acknowledge it, don't have a conversation with it. I said to my dad, what is this dialogues with the devil? He says, oh, you don't ever want to have a dialogue with the devil. He says, don't let him cheat you out of life by pulling you into his world, right? That's a conversation from hell. You don't want to go to hell and have a conversation with the devil. You can't win. We can't win. He wins in the world of thought and intellect and words. He wins. The only thing we can do is to find that still place, the be still and know place, where we are helpless, where God, and my dad said it, you get out of God's way and let him fight the battle. Because you can't win. We can't win. You raise your hand if you want to say something, by the way, because I don't want to dominate this whole thing. We're going to keep going.
And you're only guilty by stepping in the way of him. See, only if you step aside, like where I described, does he go to war with it. Now you have to kind of surmise in a very profound way that it's sort of like trust. Well, what do I do if I'm not going to fight it? Who will? Because you can't see him, you can't feel him, you can't touch him. It's a spirit that's good, just like the spirit that bad is playing with.
So it's if you can't feel God's presence and you can't feel evil's presence, where are you?
Well, you can certainly feel evil's presence. But go ahead.
No. You only feel, the only time you feel evil's presence is when you're about to be in God's presence and he can't keep himself hidden in you. He wants to be hidden. He wants to make you think he is you. And it's your thinking in your mind by yourself. There's nobody there, right? But he can manipulate your minds, your thoughts. He manipulates his own thoughts. Evil cannot manipulate his own misconception of what happened if God's presence is there. So all you have to do is let God's presence in, but you don't know you're letting it in. Because Roy said you can't feel his presence just like you can't feel evil's. You think you're thinking by yourself. Evil's helping you think. It's keeping you in your mind. In God's presence, you can't feel it, but you will see there's something in you that will open up to let his presence in, which is going to bring a reality, which is going to affect you. And that presence will now be an antithet. It will be like a poison to evil. It can't get that close now because that presence, but you don't know you're letting the presence in because you're just willing to see what God wants you to see next in that quietness, because he's going to show you something that's going to make your ego cringe. Evil will not make your ego cringe.
So last night I was lying in bed. I was tired. We worked in our garden, worked hard. And I want to just peel off here for a minute because that video is over. It's a great video, great find. We need to do this more often. But now back to my life. Because I live in wonder. I live in total wonder every day, watching everything that happens to me, every person that I bump into that crosses my path, things that happen to me. I look at it and I think there's meaning in everything. Now, I don't want to get intellectual about every little thing going, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. You just be aware and you can see there's a lot more going on. And people get into this hypnotic trance state and they walk through life asleep at the wheel. I don't know how they make it through life. Most of them make it through life, but they end their lives a lot earlier than they probably could. Look at my dad, 93 years old, and he decided, you know what? I think I've done my job here. And he didn't really have a conversation with us, but we could just tell that he was okay. My wife's gone, my kids are grown. I think I've done my job, and I could kind of see that. And at a certain point, he just said, you know what? I think I'm done. And to himself, I can only imagine. And for 5 days, he just sat there and didn't eat and drink. And then he took his last breath at 3:04 in the morning. My brother was holding his hand. And the woman that was there at the facility said that was the most beautiful passing she'd ever seen. And I wish that I could have been there because my dad was gracious to the end, to a T. Gracious, sweet, didn't want to be a burden to anyone to the end. And it's very sweet. And my mom was kind of the same way. She hung on until everybody had their last time to be with her and So the spirit, I believe, this body we have, is an interesting thing. I'm going to come back to my garden. We created this beautiful garden that is literally, it's about 100 feet by 100 feet. It's huge. And we put this gigantic wall that they should have between the border of Mexico or in any other state. And it's huge. And it's got this, not like chicken wire, but this heavy wire so that nothing can get through it, because we don't want the deer and the skunks and things eating our vegetables at night. So we did this about 3 or so years ago. And the first year we had this beautiful, beautiful garden. And it was just, there was so much food, we didn't even know what to do with it all. There was such an incredible abundance of food. And all we did was we took our finger and we pushed little seeds into the ground and put some little starters in there and made sure they were watered and kept the weeds away. And they grew and they grew and they grew and they issued forth fruit and vegetables and things that we just couldn't, we were giving them away to everybody, the neighbors. And then if the neighbor had a garden, they were trading us for different things, and it was beautiful. And then the second year came and we were a little lazy and didn't really do anything. And the third year we did less to actually nothing, because there was just a lot going on in our lives. New babies being born and parents old and dealing with problems with this, that, and the other. And so we went out the other day, about a week ago, or actually I started several weeks ago, to the Garden of Eden, which had changed into the Planet of the Apes. And you guys know what I'm talking about when I say the Planet of the Apes. There's the buildings and the vines are growing over everything, and it was crazy. I don't even know how to explain it. It felt to me like, how could this have happened? And isn't that our lives? We create this beautiful life when we're young and we have ideas and thoughts and passions, and we go to school to learn something, or we learn a skill and we become that, whether it's a plumber, a carpenter, or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden then we forget about what our purpose is. We forget about the things that we're supposed to share with the world. And we forget about what is important to us because life gets in the way, doesn't it? Life gets in the way. Things we want gets in the way. Anger starts to bubble up. Once we've got a little bit of money, we can start to deal with those bastards that did it to us in our own way, showing off our, look at my new car, my new house, or whatever, to the siblings or the parents. And I've made it, and I made it without you, kind of an attitude. But wait a minute, is that really how we're supposed to live? I mean, not saying everybody lives like that, but there's a lot of bitterness that gets in the way. And then one day you look back at your life and you go, oh my God, Planet of the Apes, or my garden, it's completely overgrown. And I thought to myself, well, we better fix this before it turns into, a gigantic briar patch, which it's halfway there already. And I'm talking 14 raised beds with diatomaceous earth in between all the beds, with cloth down so the weeds can't grow through it. Oh, yes, they can. Just let me tell you. And the wind will blow the weeds on top of it, and the rain comes like it did today, and it just starts growing down through the cloth that is supposed to stop, the little firewall for those tiny little seeds from the bird turds. The birds bring them in, the animals bring them in. But I started clearing the beds. I thought, well, let me just start with clearing the beds. Anybody seen the movie Being There? Yes. Remember? He was Chauncey the gardener. Yes, but he said Chauncey the gardener, and they go, Chauncey Gardner? Yeah. Yes. It was Peter Sellers. If you have not seen the movie Being There, watch it. It's a fantastic movie. And I'll leave it at that. I don't want to really spoil it for you, but I'll give you a tiny little piece of it. I think that he was, what do they call that in the spectrum? He had like a savant, or a person that was a little autistic in the spectrum. And whoever was taking care of him finally passed away, and it was probably his mansion that he had. But that person died, and all that's left is this, 60-year-old or 65-year-old man that needed really to be taken care of, but he loved gardening. And everything in his life was relative to in the garden. Now, at a certain point, people are asking him questions, and he would say, they ask him some profound thing, and he would sit there and he would look out the window. And when he looked out the window, he saw his garden, and it reminded him, in the garden, everything has its season. And so what happens is this person that asked him this profound question says, yes, I understand. It's brilliant. You're right. And he wasn't even talking about the answer to their question. He was just thinking out loud about his garden. So I went out and I started clearing these beds, and it was hard work. And the people that can see me right now can see that I am sunburned. I mean, it's all the way. It's everywhere. I took my shirt off, and I'm sorry to my neighbors because the Michelin Man was out there without his shirt on. But I got sunburned, and then so there's pain on top of pain on top of pain, okay? I have this wonderful thing on my hand, which I'm showing the audience, which is a blister that this is from clearing 2 beds yesterday. We have 14. And I took my gloves off, and I looked at this horrible thing, and I just decided to tear it off. And I thought to myself, I'm just going to get rid of that piece of floppy skin. So I just ripped it off, and I flicked it aside, and then, ouch! Oh, I got to stop now, So I stopped, and then all day long I'm walking with my hand out in front of me like, don't get near me. It could be infectious or something. It's just a blister, but this is just a little bit of hard work, right? Because of our neglect. We neglected our garden. And your life is also your garden. And we neglect the things. We let the weeds grow inside of our soul. And they're hard to get out. It's a little different when you're talking about life in a garden. There is no salvation or redemption for that garden unless I get in there and do it and work it. And in some ways, maybe that's how it is with God. God has to help us too. He has to save us because we can't save ourselves. We are the garden. So we worked and worked and worked, and we planted and we planted and we worked, and we've been doing this now for a while, but yesterday was like the day of really getting after it. And I looked at this garden, and I was standing there, and I kept getting dizzy because I'm just fat and old and tired and out of shape. And I would have to close my eyes and hold on to the rake and just stand there for a minute and go, oh my God. And I kept seeing checkered flags. It's probably because I like cars and racing. And I would open my eyes, and I couldn't even see for a second. It was like a sunburst. I might have been dehydrated, but I stood there and I looked at the ground, and I looked at the beds where I had cleared all the weeds and wheelbarrows full of stuff. And then I looked at the ground that used to be perfectly diatomaceous earth, which is like white. It was so beautiful. I couldn't even see the ground through the weeds. This is how bad it got in a couple of years. And I thought to myself, therein lies the souls of many men and women in this world. But underneath that is the pure diatomaceous earth that I will get back to. But I have to remove every weed one at a time. I mean, I'm not going to say, be gone with you weeds, and they're going to leave. No, it's going to take a lot of hard work, and every muscle in my body. My wife and I both, we went to bed like 2 95-year-old people. In the middle of the night, she woke up and says, how you feeling, bub? This is what she calls me, bub. And I go, I feel 100. And she says, I know, me too. And my shoulders are sunburned. I said, I know, mine too. And it's like, but hard work is good. We were tired. We ate a big meal, and we both laughed at how much we were eating. We ate a lot of salad. It was like salad, a little bit of salmon, but we just kept eating and eating and eating. And she says, when you work hard, you eat, and you eat a hearty meal. It's so good for you. Your body needs all that. But I got to tell you, my body is punishing me right now for being so, my dad wrote the book, Surviving the Comfort Zone. I got too comfortable. I just kept on neglecting. And now I'm paying the price. So do I want my garden back? Yes. Am I willing to pay the price? Yes. Am I going to have more blisters? Am I going to have to wrap this thumb with tape and keep going? Yes. Because I'm going out there today after this talk. She's out there right now. Matter of fact, she says she apologizes. It's Mother's Day. Where is Mother? Where's my wife? In the garden right now. With Mother Earth. With Mother Earth, exactly. And, you know, I have to say, being that it is Mother's Day, that I admire my wife. I've been with her 40 years, and she's an incredible, consistent woman. She has her tiny little ebbs and flows in life, but I've not met another woman that was more consistent than this wife of mine, and I'm very thankful, thanks to God, for bringing her into my life. But I knew I was on a journey to find this wife. I want to tell you, because I had plenty of girls in my life that every time I would go out on a date and go on a date with this girl, and no matter what happened, I was like, is she the one, God? And I think keeping my mind in that mindset, knowing that God was involved in going out on this date, kept me from doing anything wacky anyway. But God would say, not the one. In his own way, in my heart. That's the end of that. I went out with one girl, and she goes, that was fun. I remember this. It's so bizarre. I know I'm bouncing all over the place, but that's my brain. Sorry. I went out with this girl. She was beautiful. We had a lot of fun together, and we decided, let's do this again. Let's go on another date. About a year later, I saw her walking down the street, and I went, oh my God, I forgot. I was like a year later, and she looks at me and she goes, right. And I go, I am so sorry. I completely forgot. And you know what? God made me forget, because that was going to be a bad one. God saved me from that one. But when I met Jan, I remember when she drove on to Tall Timber Ranch with her beautiful sister that my brother Mark married. And being that it's Mother's Day, let's stay with this for a moment. I saw this girl, and I said, wow, look at that. That's a beautiful girl. But there was more to it than just the beauty of the girl. There was something very angelic about this girl. And then I got to know her just a little bit. And we were having a rap session just like this at Tall Timber Ranch. And my brother David was sitting up at the top talking, and I was standing at the back of the room just listening. And Jan was, in between me and my brother David. And my brother David got done saying something, and all of a sudden this bony, skinny, scrawny little arm went up, because she only weighed about 103. And he pointed at her and he says, what do you have to say? And she said some stuff that was so profound. I went, oh my God, there is somebody in there. You know what I'm saying? It isn't just a pretty girl. There's a pretty girl that has got it, because she grasped some point and reiterated in a much better way than my brother even said it, and more clearly. And I thought, that girl, I got to get to know a little better. And I kept asking God when I went out with her on dates and things, is this the one? And one day God basically said to me, this is the one. And I am so thankful that I waited. And then I waited 4 years to get married after we even did get engaged. And we had a proper relationship. And I'm so thankful, because I want to say this to the young people that are listening. I was 21 when I met my wife. And I got married when I was 26. So there was a year of dating and then 4 years of engagement. And we kept it clean and proper. And that is an investment in life. So for you young people that might be listening, or you parents that have kids that want to talk about with your kids how it should be done, if you young people are willing to invest in the relationship that will bear your children, grandchildren, and your ancestors, the people, forevermore, then invest from the start, because we all know what the other type of relationship yields. It yields misery, on top of misery, because when you do have children, when you're bringing up your son, you're bringing up your grandson. You're teaching your grandson in that same moment as you're teaching your son. And I look at my children today, and I'm so thankful that I made these just a couple decisions in my life, because I am a complete schmuck otherwise. And this one was so important. And she has been such an asset to my life and to so many people's lives that know her, that you folks here know her. She's a good soul. And my dad had the exact opposite kind of relationship with my mom. It was fighting and fighting and fighting. But my dad needed that to write those 25 books. You know, there's a purpose in everything God does. And so happy Mother's Day to all the folks that are the mothers that are listening. And I know you may be listening to this a week from now, but today is actually Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, even though you didn't have any children, because you have a lot of children that are not your kids, that are people that you are parenting from afar. Friends that need, just like my dad, people call him Uncle Roy and Papa Roy. He's their father once removed. And so it's the same with women that are mothers that never had children. Catherine, you're not too old. I think 50? 50? Okay. Are you 60? You're not too... Wait a minute. How old was Abraham's wife? Sarah? She was what, 90 or something? Just shows. Anyway. Yeah, I know. It's weird. But... this garden thing is really teaching me a lesson. But when I tore off that chunk of skin from the blister, I thought to myself, this thing, it's just like, I remember doing that to cars, just a piece of chrome kind of bent out funny. Let's rip it off, get a new one. And I think, did the car go, ouch? No. But this body is really very, very temporary. If you think of the scheme of things, like Chuck just said, that Abraham lived to be 500, right? Something like that. Who was it lived to be 900? Was it Moses? Or not Moses? It was hold on, Noah. Methuselah. Who? I said we all got to get back into the Bible. That's it. Right now we got it. I know.
Methuselah was the great grandfather of Noah. And Methuselah was still alive when Noah finished the ark. And so he was, I think Noah was 500 or 600 years old, but Methuselah was 900.
Unbelievable, right? So, but this body of ours in this world that we're living in today, we get about 100 years or 90 years or whatever it's going to be, is very temporary. And although we got to take care of it like the garden, otherwise it gets infested with all kinds of insanity. We got to take care of our soul like the garden, otherwise it gets weeds growing in it and it strangles it out. But I wanted to say to people that in the last few weeks when I work in that garden, and I know Chuck and Diane have a nice garden. It's growing all over their house, I think, on the outside, next to the sidewalk in the backyard. But it's funny because people will find a way to make a garden, or there's people that will make excuses saying, well, I don't have any room. And I know that Chuck and Diane grow stuff right out next to their sidewalk, right? And when I went to China a couple years ago, I was amazed that even next to the guardrails, next to the highways, they're growing 2 little rows of onions for 100 yards because there was a little chunk of dirt. And I thought to myself, well, those onions are going to be full of all kinds of road stuff. They don't care. There's so many people there, they find a place to make a garden. But there is a way you can do it. You can find a way, buy a box, or build a box, or go to the garden center or whatever and get some, the half barrels of, the wine barrels or whatever. Find a way, plant some things. Work with your hands with the earth. It's good for you. Watch things grow. And when you pluck that first tomato off and you take it inside and you eat it, there's something special about it. There's an energy about the whole process. So don't make excuses. Go out and buy a bag of horse crap and throw it in the barrel and plant some things. That's basically what it is. So,
I have a story. I was raised in the inner city, right? And I hardly ever got to see any garden or anything like that. And I remember I went to this junior high school in East LA. And I don't know how I got into the class, but it was a gardening class. And we grew these boxes inside these greenhouses, and I wasn't very enthusiastic of it, but I did it because the teacher told me to. And I planted radishes, and I didn't know what the hell a radish was, and I just eat them. And so I planted the darn thing, and then by the end of the time that it was ripe, and then I said, Jesus, this damn thing is growing. You know, the leaves were coming up, and I go, oh, this is neat. And you know, and finally when they were ripe to eat, we pull them out, and I thought that was one of the best things that ever happened. I thought it was just, and here's another thing. When we moved out from the inner city to the suburbs, the owner of the house that we lived in was an avid gardener, and he had like 7 kinds of plum trees, roses, you name it, he had it. And this one tree was a big apricot tree, and it was so, they were almost the size of small plums. They were so good. And you know what? I didn't eat them. And my friends would come over and say, how come you don't eat the apricot? I mean, these are great. I go, no, I don't, unless they're from the market, I'm not going to eat them. No. I go, and then I didn't think about it till later. I go, wait a minute.
you know what's funny about that story is I did the exact same thing. In school, what is it with radishes? They had us grow radishes, and I was probably in 3rd grade or something. How old were you?
13.
13. So at 3rd grade, I was like 7, 8. And I remember when I finally got to pull the radish out of the ground, and I looked at it and I held it in my hand and I went, I don't like radishes, right? I the same kind of a thing where I don't want to eat that. It didn't come from the store, but because here's a little 8-year-old boy. 8-year-old boy don't eat radish, right? So we had to like harvest our little radishes, and I had like, I don't know, 7 or 8, because it was just a little square thing. And I took them over to the little sink and I washed them and cleaned them, and she says, all right, now we're going to eat them. And I'm like, I don't want radish. I don't even know what a radish is. I don't know what it's going to taste like. And so she cut off the stem on one end, and then she cut off the leaves on the other, and she sliced it into probably 5 little slices. And she says, all right. She goes, you know, I like salt on mine. And I was like, I don't even like radish. And I remember when I picked that little slice of radish up, and I took a little bite, and I went, oh my God, it's delicious. But I got to tell you, it's funny you said that, because while you were telling that story, I thought, when did I have my first little gardening opportunity? And then you said radish, and I went, oh my God. But I want to tell you, every time I eat a radish, I think of that every single time. So I don't know what that means. And I don't know why it's there, and an everlasting memory of me of growing something and eating it. And my wife, while we were working yesterday in the sun, hoeing and, you know, getting the weeds, and she says, look how hard it is to grow food. I said, you know, it really is not hard. We've made it hard. Because if you think about it, the first time we did it, we just plopped everything in there and it grew like crazy, because it was all fresh and clean and innocent and unspoiled and no weeds. And it was us as little children. But the weeds have grown and made life more difficult. And I said, we made it difficult. And she says, you know what? You're right. I said, let's not let this garden get like this again. Not that we won't, but now we have to be conscious of it. We've suffered, right? We've lived life, we've suffered, and our garden is almost like our children. You know, we suffer with the things that we forgot to do or didn't care to do or didn't love enough to do. It's in them now. It's in our garden now, the weeds. So I just can tell you that's why I said I think it's important that we all grow something, to be conscious of what it takes. It's even like this gentleman said, I'm not going to eat that. It didn't come from the store. We get caught into that. That's like a programming kind of a thing. It is, and we get caught into it.
I was just going to say about the garden, I have 4 raised beds. For me, a lot of times just going out there, because I'm one of those people that get lost in my head, I just start one thing. And one thing leads to 2 things. And it is very centering. And then I was telling Charles yesterday I was changing sprinkler heads and on a whole strip of grass, and it took a couple hours, but man, were the thoughts there. And I'm like, wow, there's so many thoughts. I wish I could, you're talking about the thoughts, but there's just a lot. And I've been a person that goes down the rabbit hole within the thoughts. But the garden and the ground, and I grow worms, and Charles does worms because I started worms years ago. But it's very centering. There's something about it that's, good for all of us. That makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. And if anybody needs a leash or any worm clothing, she also knits because she has pet worms. You should see her walking her worm. It's really funny.
Off the street, I pick the worms this time getting started when it rains. I pick them up off the sidewalk. I got started that way.
Yeah. I never thought I would ever find myself buying worms. And yes, we went and bought worms. Not this year, but a couple years ago. They're so important for the soil.
Oh, they've got amazing.
You have a kennel of worms.
What I do is I pull the weeds that have grown in my garden over the winter, and you think, oh man, these weeds, and I'm just going to get rid of them. And I throw them in my worm bins, and the worms eat them, and they poop them out. And now I have worm juice and worm castings that completely fertilizes every new thing that I do.
Just careful when you go to Chuck's house if he offers you a glass of worm juice. And the worm juice is actually for the gardening. It's not something you drink. Isn't it funny, though, how, it's like this garden, right? In the Garden. Chauncey Gardiner. Make sure you get that movie, Being There. Being There. And if you forget, call some friend or write it down, Being There. It is such a sweet, sweet movie. I don't want to even tell you how it ends, but it's just beautiful. So, this garden right now is a lot of my focus, which is funny because I'm focusing on refining who I am for me because I need to do it, not for the world. I refined who I was for the world for many years, and I got really good at it and got paid well. But one day you look back and you go, well, who the hell am I? Who am I really? And so I had lived for many years trying to refine myself for the world. And then you probably saw me over the last 2 years grow a beard. I'd never grown a beard. Sit up here and do these Sunday talks with a beard and a T-shirt. It's an ugly, furry, nasty thing. Smells like pizza. After you eat, it's a cookie duster. But I wasn't sure who I was. And I decided, you know what? I just don't care. And I wasn't going to be one of those guys that just let hair grow all over me. I tried to keep it trim and stuff, but I wasn't sure who the hell I was. Wasn't sure who my dad wanted me to be. Wasn't sure who you guys wanted me to be. And then I went, well, who the hell do I want to be? What do I want to be? What kind of a man do I want to be? What is my job? What is my purpose in this life? What am I supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? What is your purpose? Have you asked that question, given that thought? What is your purpose? What are you supposed to be doing? And we've been talking about this quite a bit here in this little group of people here, and you listening at home as well. Our purpose is what we've got to find out. It's like my dad says at the beginning of all these little talks, why am I here? Why am I here? Now, we get to this place because it really doesn't matter when you're just a young person. You're just here to have fun, taste life, experience life, skydive, rock climb, fast cars, whatever. You go through all that and you're like, wow, what an idiot was I. I could have died 1,000 deaths. I thought I would probably get killed in a car driving fast. And truthfully, my house, I said to my wife, put everything in your name, because whatever happens to me, you won't have to go fighting for it. Hold on. Because I thought I drive fast. I drive fast cars for a living. I drive race cars. I'm one of those 200-mile-an-hour guys, because they would take me out and give me an open wheel race car. Here's a racetrack, go for it. And I always beat everybody else. I was a good driver. Now I don't even care. I want to drive slow with the top down.
I've seen in driving that the devil wants to take your life. He teases you to go faster and faster, and but I've seen that he's waiting to do it.
It's interesting you say that, because my last fancy car was a Demon, a Dodge Demon, and that car almost killed me. Yeah, I have it on film. I went when it was brand new. Here's an 840 horsepower car. And I went to go show a bunch of my buddies that were the fast car guys. And it was early in the morning. I'm trying to think what time of year it was, but it was about 40 degrees outside. 39, I think, is what it was. And if you know about cars, if you've ever watched any drag racing, they do this burnout ahead of time. And the idea is to heat up the tires and to make the rubber softer so it'll stick to the ground better. Because if the tires are cold, it's like ice cubes, they're hard as rock. And I didn't do a burnout. I did a burnout away from, I was going to show this guy how fast his car was. And it was so fast that we got up to about 165 miles an hour in about that fast. And I could see a stop sign coming up, and I thought, I don't think this thing has enough brakes to stop, because it was coming up fast. So I let off the gas. And when I did that, it literally stopped the tires from spinning. They were just spinning. And I'm sorry, I didn't get to 165. It was about 135, because the fastest I ever went in that car was 165. But when I let off the gas, the car did a complete 360. And I was on this little farm road, and on both sides of the road, thank God, it was just dirt and a little ditch off the road on each side. Went off into the ditch, spun around in the dirt, and then all of a sudden the hand of God reached out and picked me up and put me back on the highway, going the same direction I was going. Did a complete 360 off the road and back up on the road. And I knew in my heart that car is going to kill me. The devil was in that car. He was in the ego machine that I had bought. And the good news is I sold it and made $42,000. Because you know what? And here's the most important part, that I knew I had to get rid of that car. And because I was obedient and got rid of that car, I put it in an auction, and some crazy idiot like myself was willing to pay a huge price for it. And I got rid of it. And it was gone, and I was like, wow. And I bought a Jeep that is just slow. And I don't care about driving fast anymore. I just kind of let it all go. But there's a lot of things. No matter who you are, you're going to have some little thing that could take your life, whether it's an unconsciousness, driving down the road. Have you ever seen somebody run right through a red light right in front of you? And they don't even know they did it? The other day, a guy went just, a normal, it could have been any one of us, drove right through the red light, and a car was coming on the other side of me, and it went right behind him, and the guy didn't even know he ran the red light. He was completely unconscious. In the same state of mind, by the way, from the gentleman that talked about he didn't want to eat the peaches or the plums or whatever they were because they weren't from the store. It's that we are locked into that hypnotic states of America, if you know what I'm saying, or of the world, where we don't even know that we almost just got killed. We don't even know it. But when you are waking up to life and to your Creator, and you get into that be still and know moment, you hear the little or the you better slow down. And you don't even know why. You're like, why? It's so funny. I was driving yesterday, and something said, you better slow down. And I actually tapped my brakes. And I looked in my rearview mirror, and there was a guy right on my tail. And I was thinking to myself, what did I do that for? What does he think behind me? He almost rear-ended me. And I thought, I don't know, but I don't care. I don't know, but I need to be obedient. Even if it's for no reason, I need to be obedient, because when the time comes that he's going to keep me from getting killed, I will be obedient. And you know where I learned the best example of this is the movie where the airplane landed on the Hudson. What's that called? Sully, right. The pilot's name was Sully. And I got to hear him speak. And he, people, there's like a special about this whole thing about the airplane that landed in the Hudson River. And yeah, no one died. I got to interview the pilot, Sully, and I interviewed the last person off, the passenger that was the last person off the plane. He helped everybody get out. He felt that was his job, and if he had to die doing it, he was going to help everyone get out. And he's a sweet guy, and I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I watch his life, and see, he has a purpose in his life. And he knows he was obedient. My wife told me one day, she was driving down the highway, and a 2-lane highway, one lane in each direction, and there was a road that came onto the road like a Y. It came onto the road, and something said, "You better slow down." She was going the speed limit, and something said, "You better slow down." And off of this side road, some crazy went right in front of her. Had she been going faster, he may have ran right into her, hit her on the right side of the car, which would have shoved her into the left lane, which could have been a head-on collision, and her and my children and the person on the head-on collision could have all gotten killed. But because of listening to the small, quiet voice and being obedient to that, life changes. Waking up from the sleep state, the matrix, finding yourself in that be still and know place in life where you are in a constant state of wonderment. Just being conscious of the birds in the sky and the wind. I was talking about it the other day. The sun beating down on your skin, the weeds growing and what you have to do to remove them properly, or whatever it is. It's like there's a consciousness about everything that happens in your life, and you do it differently. You don't just whack at them. You have to remove them. You have to get down, and if you don't remove the root, it'll grow right back. And that's the problem with us and all of these quick fix things that we have in this world today. They may remove the weed off the surface, but they don't get the root. And the root is inside of you, and it's grown into your spirit and your soul. And you really have to find the root cause of stuff in order to weed out the weeds from your own self, your own soul.
To what you said, Roger, your name's Roger, right? I'm sure a lot of people have had this. I'd be driving down the road, and I'll have like a thought or a voice say, "Go, run off the road right now, go," and it's literally trying to kill me. And I used to have suicidal thoughts because I went through like a period of time where I just wanted to bail out. I wanted to hide away. I didn't want to deal with what I was seeing, but the box was already open. I couldn't close it, and I wanted, so I went through multiple years of just trying to hide, and thank God finally, that stopped, because I didn't want to keep on being an angry person, because that was the bottom line. The anger was not going to go away by hiding from life. I was trying to preserve what little life I had left, but in that trying to do that, it was multiplying the demon, and so. I don't know, I don't really see, maybe I'm off a little bit, but I don't really see that when, that God, he'll show you things, but I don't think he's like telling you, don't do this, don't do that, because I see that that's what the darkness doing. So I don't see in my life that it's using the same MO, it may, okay.
So here's the difference. God doesn't talk to me. He doesn't talk. He puts his knowing in your heart. And there's a difference, because I remember when I was a little boy, we went out on a boat. I was probably about 8 years old, and it was a very fast speedboat. It was a friend of my dad's, and he took a few of his kids with. And I was standing there holding onto the side behind my dad, and my dad says, "Boy, I bet at this speed, the ocean is as hot as a rock if you jumped out right now." Right? And the guy says, "Oh, yeah." He says, "You know, at a certain speed, water is just like concrete." And I'm listening to this as a little boy. And what do I hear? Jump, jump. And I thought to myself, no. Remember how I said the other day, that's not me? Has anybody else ever had the experience of, like he just said, something says to jump in front of a train or a car or a bus? Yes, we have. Whether we want to admit it or not, that thing, that I guess Beelzebub and his millions of demons that he has as his league are out there constantly trying to catch you at a weak moment. And as I think with children, you hear suicides, and they do it because they don't have the strong, loving parents in the house. The parents are preoccupied with life and all these things, and the kid listens. But as adults, we have it also. And you just have to say, not me. You're not me. Voice, you're not me. Because I separate myself from that other side because I hear all kinds of things. Last night, I was lying in bed. And I had gone to bed a little bit early, and my wife, she had some things to do, and she says, "I might watch TV for a little while. I'm not quite tired yet." So I turn off the lights, and our room is like pitch black when it's dark. And I was lying there, and all of a sudden I started thinking about this Sunday conversation from 2 weeks ago when my wife was there talking about how there was like a demon growling in the closet because God come in and had cast out this demon to this person, but it was in the closet, pissed off, growling. And I was lying there, and it was pitch black, and I heard something. And you know how the arm hair stands up on your arms and the back of your neck. And I was like, what was that? And then I'm lying there. I'm like, "Dear Lord, Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name." I start saying my prayers. And I thought to myself, you cheater, you shouldn't just pray when you're afraid. But that's what we do. It does work at least a little. I'm just going to put myself with, talking to God for a minute. Anyway, so I heard something else. And I mean, the hair on my arms was standing straight out. And I thought to myself, what is that? And so I start listening intently through the house to the other side of the house. Is it my wife in the kitchen? And all of a sudden, right here next to me, something went clunkety clunk. And I went, all right, that's it. I'm turning the light on. I turned the light on, and I'm looking all around. I'm like, I know I can't see you because you're just a spirit, you bastard. But, there was something there. So I thought, all right, that's it. I'm conscious of you. I know you're here, but I'm going to let God fight my battle. So I turned off the light, and I said another little prayer, and I said, I'm going to go to sleep. And then I hear something banging around. I'm like, what is going on? So I called my wife. I go, where are you? She goes, oh, I left the garden gate open and I don't want something to get in there and eat the things we just planted. It was like 11 o'clock at night. She was out. She had gotten her car out of the garage and drove around to the park, to the part where we have the garden. And she was tying up the door because we just bought a latch. And so this was what I'm hearing. But the devil was, really scaring me. No, but there was a little something banging around in my room too. But I got to tell you, it's so interesting. When you're conscious, I've said this before, and this is the best illustration I have. When you're playing a video game and you get close to the gold, the zombies come out of the walls. And that's where the zombies are. If they're not in you, they're wanting to get in you. You got to be in that state of consciousness.
I used to have, speaking of zombies, I used to have situations where I would be, after meditating, laying on my bed, and I wasn't probably meditating correctly, and I have no doubt, but I would have a presence come into my room from out of the building that I could literally sense. It was coming in. When it came into my room, the whole room lit up a unbelievable brightness, but I would not open my eyes. I was scared, and it was like there was a jet engine inside my room. The energy. It was like, and it would last for about 30 seconds, and it would leave, and then I would be like, whoa. This happened multiple times. And it was giving me an idea that they were angelic, but they were not. It was the demons playing as angels, giving me an idea of myself that I was not.
I was going to make a joke saying that God said he came twice to see you and you would not open your eyes. Sorry, buddy. But you know what? No, to his point, they will try and trick you. Oh, yeah. They will try and trick you. But this is why my dad, like he talked about in that little 2-minute clip, you must not engage with them. You must not believe them nor disbelieve them. You must put all your faith in your Creator. Love your Creator with all your mind, your heart, and your soul. And when these things start happening, and they are not obviously God speaking into your heart, it's all of the tricks of the trade, you might say. And because I had a similar thing happen to me when I was 19 at Tall Timber Ranch, actually. And I went to bed early, and I was lying there like a person would lie in a coffin with their hands clasped, covered, what do they call this, in an X across their chest. And I was lying there, and something started floating over me, and all I could see was the bottom lip and the chin. And the room was pitch black, and I saw the bottom lip and the chin of this person or entity floating right over me. But my eyes weren't open. It was a vision, and I thought, is that you, God? Is that you? Is that you, Jesus? And it just sat there, and I said, is that you? Is that you? Lord, is that you? And I probably asked that question 10 times, and I kept trying to ask it in different ways to my Creator and or to his Son, my Savior. And I think it finally pissed off that demon enough that I saw its eyes blink at me, and they were green slits, and they just went blink, and it was like fluorescent green slits, like a dragon's eyes, you might say. And I went, oh, okay. I see what's going on here. You're trying to trick me. You're trying to trick me. Well, you're not going to have me. You're not going to have me. And I started having a little dialogue with the devil, right? So then as soon as I started talking to this thing and telling it it's not going to have me, it started pulling me through time to try and scare me. And all of a sudden, I looked back and my body was laying in the bed, and I was now above my body, and I was moving through time. And what did I see on the sides? But I see these trees and all these demonic faces behind these trees looking at me. And I'm moving through time, and I'm like, you're not going to have me. I know what you are. I know what you're trying to do. There's no way. I'm not. And I was, freaking out. I was 19 years old. I didn't know what to do. And I was moving faster and faster and faster. And all these horrible, distorted faces on the side. And I was just floating through air, like lying flat, flying through the air head first. And I was seeing what was going by as I went by it. And I was probably going 100 miles an hour. And all of a sudden I realized, I can't fight this battle. Of myself, I can do nothing. I can't win the argument. I can't tell it to go away. I know what I have to do. I have to call out for God with all the sincereness in my soul. And I said, God, help me. Please help me. I'm sorry. I repent of my sins. I'm sorry. Please help me. And all of a sudden, I said that about 3 or 4 times. And all of a sudden, it was like an explosion. Boom! And I landed back in my bed. And I had broken through calling out to God. I had broken the facade, or whatever you want to call that dreamscape of thing that the devil was trying to trick me. And I saw this blue sky, and I just said thank you to God, and I went to sleep. And then I woke up about a half an hour later, and I went, it's freezing in this room. It's freezing cold. And all of a sudden, I felt the hair on my arm stand up. Because remember, like I said the other day, the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. I jumped out of bed and I went right out into the hallway, and I saw a guy that worked at the ranch at that moment in time. And he goes, "What's the matter with you?" He goes, "You look like you saw a demon." I said, "Come here. You come here." I said, "Go in that room and tell me what you feel." He walks over to the room. He turns the light on in the room. He walks about 3 steps into the room, and he goes, "It's freezing in here." I said, "I know." And this guy had been in the Hells Angels, so he knew evil. He says, "And I feel an evil spirit in this room." And he backs out and closes the door, and he said, "Nobody needs to go in this room for a few days." And every time I go in that room, I always think about it, but there's nothing in there anymore, because there's nothing in there to do any good for the devil. The devil needs our souls. He needs us to survive. We're just simply food for the devil.
I'd like to tell a little happier story than that one. I remember I was meditating, and I came up out of my body, and I was looking at myself, and I was only about a foot or two above my body. And it scared the bejesus out of me. I'm telling you, I wanted to get back in there so quickly. I heard about people that had, gone out of body experience and gone out into space and everything else. And I remember what your dad said: be careful, we might come back and find something else in there. So I asked your dad about it. I was really concerned about it, and he kind of smiled. I don't remember if he chuckled or not, but he said, it was just to show you that you're not flesh and blood, that you have a spirit. And I always remember that, but I also remember the fear of wanting to get back in there and pee in my body.
Did you say peeing the bed? No. Oh, okay. Just checking. Anybody else want to have a story or say anything? I'm dominating again. I hate to do that. There's so many. Everybody. Hold on.
There was a gentleman that came in my shop a few years ago. He came in really bitter, and I'd known him for a while. I think he was a manager of one of the grocery stores in town. And I asked him what was going on, and he says, "Oh, my wife's been cheating on me, and she wants a divorce now, and life sounded like it was just a disaster." So he comes back about a year later. This time he's smiling. He looks really peaceful. And I said, "So what's going on?" He says, "I met this great gal, and we're engaged to get married right now, and I've been going to church." And I said, "You've been going to church?" I didn't remember him being a religious guy at all. I said, "What brought that on?" He says, "Well, I got in a real serious car accident. I was with my little girl in the car. Car rolled over. When it finally stopped rolling, I looked to my right to make sure my daughter was all right, and she wasn't even in the car." So he said he was absolutely terrified. He jumped out of the car to see if he could find his daughter, and he saw her sitting on the grass. And he walked over to her, and he said, "Well, are you okay?" And she says, "Yeah, I'm fine. Jesus came over and picked me up and put me on the grass." And I said, I was kind of skeptical when I heard that. I said, "Well, you were kind of putting those ideas in her head, right? You were kind of responsible for that." He says, "No, we weren't going to church." So he said that made him a believer. And I just thought that was one of the most realistic Jesus stories I've ever heard. And I got to see the little girl a few days later, and I asked her about it. And to her, it didn't seem like it was a big deal. Nobody told her that was an unusual thing. So yeah, she says, "Yeah, Jesus came, picked me up, put me on the grass." So I thought that was kind of a cool story.
Awesome. Yeah, that is. Did you want?
Real quick.
Yeah.
I had a car wreck. Truck came in my lane, head-on collision. I tried to avoid it. He followed me. Bam. But right before the collision, I was a dummy. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. but something took over, the Spirit took over my body. I completely relaxed, like slumped over, and bam! And had I not done that, I would have likely been thrown through the windshield. But something literally took over my body. I completely slumped over, relaxed, and I was minimally injured. I had a, broken scalp, but that was not anything that I thought of to do, that had any knowledge of doing.
Can I tell one? Cool. So my car story, I was 8. My mom pulled me out of school. She was fighting with my stepfather, and we were going to go to San Francisco. And so we were in a 67 VW on 101 near Morro Bay. And right before the accident, back then there were no seatbelts, 1968, I laid down to go to sleep. And then apparently my mom was going into the middle, which was plants, and she jerked the wheel and the car flipped 3 times. My window went out in one piece. I went out the window and the car rolled over on top of me. And when they found my mom, she said, "Where's my daughter?" And they said, "There's nobody else here." And so they rolled the car off of me. And all I remember is one thought: I wish they would hurry up. I had that thought. Don't know why. And the doctor said they don't know why I was alive. So pretty good. I mean, fractured my pelvis and I looked pretty bad for weeks. But how old were you? 8. So I guess I'm still.
I think there's a lot of angels floating around.
Yeah.
We cannot see with our eyes.
Everyone has these, not everyone, but a lot of people have these experiences, and they have stories to tell, which is all great. It's great to share your experiences, but back to the tape with Roy, he says, forget about the past.
Yeah.
It's gone, which is to say, you're in the moment. The funny thing is that the traumas and the good things and the bad things are still alive in you in the moment. I mean, if you learned a lesson deeply about the meaning of life, that's still with you in the moment. You don't have to keep going back and remembering the lesson. And if you are traumatized by something that you didn't do right, and it still keeps, it will rise itself up. Something will trigger it in the moment for you to deal with it now without thinking about the memory. Because when you go back to memories, guess whose realm that is? When you're in your brain thinking of memories, guess who's the boss there? Right. See? So it's kind of a crazy thing, because our blessing is we have a brain that can figure out things and can verbalize things, but also we have a brain that is liable to distort reality and to justify craziness, where our perception, there's another part of us that sees right and wrong and justice and injustice, and that's not in the brain. And that sees it, and the brain tends to twist that around. So anyway, I love the stories, but just remember it goes beyond the stories. It goes to where you are in the moment and moment by moment, so that when you're driving home after this talk, your mind will start talking to you at some point. And you don't have to shut it down, because that's a mistake too. You just have to somehow be pulled out of that so that you're watching your mind talk to you, in a sense. And watching your mind thinking, because your mind might think, oh, look out for that dog, and that's a good thing to see in your mind, but it also has to do with an action you take. So I don't know how to say that. It's so tricky, because your mind can think of what you should do, and it is the thing you should do, but you shouldn't do it because your mind thought it. And your mind.
No, it's true.
And you say, how could you stop? How can you pick? You can't pick. When you realize the danger of that, that gives him room to come in and start being the force in your life. And before you realize that, it's hard for God to get in there. He has to kind of hit hard to wake you up, because you still believe in your mind and that you're running the show here. So anyway.
It's kind of like when we read the Bible, we see all these beautiful things and we read all these beautiful stories and we learn all this amazing stuff. And you can either close the Bible and put it down on the nightstand and walk away with 2 things. You either walk away with a story that you remember, or a principle, and accept it, and it's like a vitamin that nourishes the soul. There's 2 different kinds of things. What do you remember? The story that you want to tell and share with a friend, or does it change your very nature through grace? So I'll use that word that my dad used. I have to figure out how to use it more often and better. But it is really grace. And when you learn something from a person, a situation that happens to you, is it the story that you really remember, or is it what you learned from it through grace that you take away? Now, I remember all the stories. And if I really try hard and I kind of put my mind or my human body in reverse for a minute and go back in time, or do I really want to go, all right, I remember that story, but here's what I learned from it. That's the secret, is, the lesson, the life lesson. Anybody else before we go? Okay.
That's the thing that your father taught me. There was a schism between the Bible and the church and the teachings and the life that I lived in, the everyday life. And he closed that gap. He was the one that brought those principles and those things into my life. And that was the magic, that he had, that came through him. And it's like you mentioned that there's a program on television now, the Chosen. Yeah. And one of the things that in this series that is different from all the others is it makes him more realistic. It makes him a person rather than the Messiah, and realize that he had to live in this world the same as we do, and he had the same kind of things that went on. During one of the episodes, they talk about making the wine at the wedding. We watched that last night. And it was, and his mother comes up to him and says, would you make the wine? And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, and he says,
Don't
well,
give it away for everybody that hasn't seen it. Go ahead. It's a story.
No, it's a story, and he says, it's not my time to be making miracles and cause attention to myself, because he knew if he caused attention to himself at this time that he would likely be killed. And but his mother kind of leans on him a little bit and says, "Come on, son, do this." And we don't think of Jesus's mother talking to him like that. And whether it's true or not is not really the point.
It shows on Mother's Day how willful mothers can be. I'm joking. Even Jesus had that problem. No, but you honestly. So in closing, the two movies you want to see. Well, one is a TV series called The Chosen, and I hope that you guys are enjoying it. Whoever's watching, it's really fun. And the other one is Being There with Peter Sellers and Chauncey Gardner. It was made in the 70s sometime probably. But anyway, guys, thank you very much. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there around the world. And thank you for supporting the foundation. We are going to have the Celebration of Life for my mom and dad next Sunday at Tall Timber Ranch. Yes, sir. The site failed. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll fix that. Thank you. He said the site had an error, so yeah, so
The wrong date
For the lunch.
for the lunch. You said April 18th.
okay. Well, if there's problems with the website, it's to test you for your patience. Just testing. We'll have that fixed probably before you get to hear this, whoever's listening. Anyway, it's the 16th, which is Sunday, next Sunday, at Tall Timber Ranch, and we're going to have a nice lunch. We'll do a 10 o'clock in the morning rap session, give people a chance to get out there, and we'll probably go and do it just like this with people talking and sharing some stories and what have you, and then we'll do a celebration of life where I'm going to put together a whole bunch of photographs, and also want people to share their stories, because I know there's people coming from a long way to be able to share their stories. And I think it'll be helpful for people, because there's a grieving process for all of us for this this father and mother of mine, because I think without them, all of our lives would be different. I know mine would, because I wouldn't be here. All right, we'll see you guys next week out at Tall Timber Ranch.